Hi everyone, welcome to the session. Today we are going to show how you can deploy the Alibaba Qwen models to Amazon Bedrock. Specifically, we're going to go through what's outlined in this blog post. The blog post here goes about deploying a couple of models, but we're specifically going to look at the 2.5 VL model, which is a vision model. So it can handle videos and images, as well as a little bit of text as well. The way we're going to do that, we're going to make use of Amazon Bedrock's custom model import feature. And I've got a little bit of how we're going to do that in this little slide here. So first of all, we're going to prepare the model. So that's going to require us to download the model from Hugging Face. We're then going to do a little bit of preparation, make sure that the files are all correctly downloaded. We're going to do that via an EC2 instance. The reason we want to do that is because sometimes these models can be really large. So if you wanted to go for a bigger model, you can basically use the same process, just increasing the size of the EC2 instance. I know a lot of people don't necessarily have, 50 gigabytes on their PC or on their laptop. So we're going to do that via a EC2 instance. We're then going to import it via S3. So Bedrock has two ways of importing models. One of them is from SageMaker, one of them is from S3. And we're going to do the S3 model. So we're going to do the S3 way, which is a little bit simpler for those of you who are just getting started. We'll go through how to invoke the model we've imported into Amazon Bedrock. And lastly, I will show how to clean up the resources so you don't incur any more costs afterwards. Let's get started. So the model that we're going to deploy is going to be this model, which is available in Hugging Face. So this is the 2.5 VL Qwen model. It's an instruct model, which means it works well for sort of chat applications. The things to look around in here is just a little bit about how the model works. There's a couple of details. There's a lot of Python scripts and these kind of things that we will kind of go through in the tutorial today. This just basically shows you how you can get it going. There's a bit about how you can prompt it. What we're going to do for our prompting at the end when we write the Python script is we're going to just do a simple prompt where we give it an image and we ask it what is in the image, and it's going to return exactly what is in the image. All right, so this is what we're going to deploy. Let's head over to the AWS console. The first thing we want to check is the region that we're in. The reason we want to do this is because, first of all, the model import feature is currently, at the time of recording, only available in North Virginia, Oregon, and Ohio. So you'll need to be in one of those regions to make use of this feature. You might be watching this at a later date, and so it might be available. So double check on the Bedrock documentation where this feature is available. The second thing is if you are using other models, certain models aren't available in certain regions. So if you're using maybe Claude alongside Qwen, you might want to make sure that you're in a region that has both the import feature capability and also has the models that you make use of. So I'm going to use North Virginia just because it's a little bit closer for me for my latency requirements. We're going to start off by creating an IAM role. We're going to head over to search and we're going to type in IAM. IAM is where you manage all of the access and controls of different resources and policies in your account. The reason we're going to do this is we're going to actually use an EC2 instance, and we want to attach a role to that instance that's going to allow it to do certain things. Specifically, we wanted to be able to access S3 so we can upload our model into that S3 bucket. And then from there, we'll be able to import into Bedrock. So we're going to go over to roles. Right, so from here, we're going to go to create role. We're going to choose AWS service and we're going to choose EC2 because what we want to do eventually is attach this role to an EC2 instance. And then we hit next. There's two permissions that I'm going to apply, or permissions policies that I'm going to apply to this role. One is a nice ease of use policy, and the other one is for our actual purpose, which is the S3 policy. The first one is SSM managed instance core. So this is going to allow us to connect to our instance from the AWS console. So the console has a really cool feature that allows you to use SSM, which is basically like a systems manager, to connect to your instance without having to expose a port. So this is a little bit of a more secure way to connect to instances. And it's also a bit more convenient because the console has it built in, so you can quite easily connect to your instance. The second policy we need is for our actual import process, because once we've prepared our model, we want to import it into S3. So we need to give it S3 access. For now, I'm going to use S3 full access. This gives full access to all of the S3 buckets. If you're in a corporate environment, or if you're in a production environment, or if you have a lot of resources in your account, I'd maybe suggest scoping this down. That's beyond the scope of this, no pun intended, but we're going to just use S3 full access for now. I'm going to hit next, and for here, role name, I'd suggest using something that's descriptive about what the role is doing. This helps when you audit later. If you're auditing roles in the future, you want to make sure that you know what role is being used for what. So for this, I'm going to call it ML preparation instance, because I'm going to attach it to an instance. You can put a description if you want to be more specific. And I'd also suggest using tags if you want to be able to group your different resources in the future, especially if you've got a lot of resources in the same account. That can be super useful. So we're going to go over to create role. So that should create our role for us. Right, and so now that the role is created, we're going to head over to EC2 to create our instance. From the EC2 console, we're going to hit launch instance over here. So here, the things that you want to add are, first of all, the name. So the name, we're going to just call it ML prep. This is just useful if you have a lot of instances in your account already. It just helps you to identify it quite quickly. We're going to use Amazon Linux. We're going to keep these the default. I suggest keeping it the default on 64-bit too. Here, the instance type. What I'd suggest is you can use T3 micro, but I'd suggest bumping the instance up to something like a T3 medium or a T3 large. The reason being is that larger instances tend to have more bandwidth. And so you'll be able to download and upload your models a lot faster if you're using a larger instance. So for this, I'm going to use a T3 large. Also bear in mind that while the instance is running, you will be incurring a cost. So what we're going to do is we'll use the instance, and then once we've got the models up and running and in Bedrock, then we can stop the instance. That will stop some of the incurred costs. But if you want, after you've imported the model, you can delete the instance. And I'll show you how to do that later as well. We're going to use SSM to connect to the instance, so key pair is no longer required, or not necessarily required. If you prefer to have this because you prefer to use SSH, by all means, enable and download the key pair. Here we specifically want to mention the size of our volume. Bear in mind that the larger models require a lot more capacity to download. So if you're using like a 120B model, it's going to probably require a lot more capacity on your storage. I've already done this before in the past, so I know that roughly 50 will be plenty for this tutorial. So I'm going to just put 50. The last thing we want to do is go to advanced details, because we want to attach that role that we created to the instance. So we're going to go over here, and our one was ML preparation instance. You can see I've done it a couple of times in the past, but we're just going to attach that there. And then the rest you can kind of update as you like. I'd suggest, if this is the first time doing it, to just keep it as is and then hit launch. So that's going to launch our instance. And what we're going to do from here is select the instance. We're going to go to connect. And if you're not already on the session manager tab, just change to the session manager. It's not connected right now, so we're going to just give it a bit of time. And then it usually takes about a minute. This is just because the instance is booting up and then it's connecting to SSM. That's going to allow us to connect to that instance. So you might just want to hit like refresh. And now you can see the connect button is orange, so you can just hit connect. And what it will do is, in the background, it will use SSM to create a session, and you will get dropped into a command line that's in the instance. So here we are. I'm going to use bash just because it's more familiar for me. And I'm just going to cd to my home directory. All right, so now we're on the instance. We need to do a little bit of preparation before we can download the model. Because it's a bare instance, there's a few dependencies that we just need to install beforehand. The first one is that we need to have Git, because Git is what we're going to use to download the model onto our instance. So we need to use yum here. So it's sudo yum install Git. And I'll just put a -y just to accept it immediately. That's going to go and update the packages in the background, and it's going to install Git for us. While that's working, the next thing we're going to need is we're going to open up another tab, and I'm going to type in git lfs. We're going to use git lfs because the models on Hugging Face tend to use lfs specifically for things like weights, some of the tensor files, and that is going to require this extension to download onto our instance. So we need to install it. So the way you go about doing that is we're going to see this download button. We're going to right click it and just go to copy link address. We're going to go back to our instance. We're going to go wget, and we are going to put the line there. And that will download the git lfs files. We'll untar it. So it's tar xef and git. So that will extract it. So if we go ls, we can see that we've now got the extracted folder. We're going to go sudo /git lfs install. So that will run a script, and it basically installs git lfs on our machine. So now we can go git lfs version, and you should see that you've got LFS 3.7.0, which I believe is the 3.7.0 that we've got over here. So we've installed git lfs, and we've got all those things in place to now download our model from Hugging Face. So what we're going to do is, first of all, just clear this out. We're going to head over to Hugging Face. We're going to go to the Qwen2.5 VL7B instruct model. We're going to click these three little dots over here. We're going to go to clone repository. So from here, you get a number of commands that you can use to download the model from Hugging Face. I'm going to skip the LFS install because I'm going to show you what happens if you don't install LFS first, and I'll show you what the file kind of looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to go copy this git clone command. We're going to head over to SSM, our session, and we're going to just paste it in. And we're going to hit clone. And what that does is it pulls some of the files down onto our EC2 instance. Now, if we go ll, we can see that the folder is there. We can just go to cd qwen like that, and we're going to go ll. So what you'll notice here is that things like the .safe tensors you can see that the size of the file is about 135. I think that's bytes. So that's quite small for these model tensors. And if you just cat one of them, 0001, you'll see it has a pointer to LFS objects, and you can see the actual size is a lot larger than this 135. So the reason I'm showing you this is because sometimes if you don't pull down the models correctly and you try and upload it and push it into Amazon Bedrock, it's going to throw an error when you do that import, and that's going to lead to having to redo the process. So first of all, double check that you've got enough storage, because also if the pulling process fails, you might have to sort of restart the process too. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do git lfs install. So we're going to install LFS to make sure it's there, and then we're going to go git lfs. Let's do pull. So this is now going to pull down some of those very large files and make them available on our instance. So now we're going to head over to the S3 console because we want to create a bucket that we can use to then import the model later. So we're going to go over to EC2. Let's go to S3. Now, the thing to bear in mind here, similar to the EC2 instance, is we want to make sure that the bucket that we create is a bucket that's in the same region that our EC2 instance is. The reason for that is because if you have a bucket in a different region to the EC2 instance, you will incur costs when you're pushing across regions into S3. It's called inter-region transfer costs. You don't want to do that, so let's make sure that we have the bucket in the same region as the instance that we're preparing our models. And also the same region for the Bedrock model import. So we're going to go create bucket. We can give it any kind of name, but the name has to be a unique across S3. So I'm going to make it ML model imports. And I'm just going to prepend my account name or account ID over here. The rest should be fine to keep as is. It usually has a block by default. So we're going to just hit create bucket over here. So that's our bucket created. Let's head back over to Systems Manager to see how we're doing. So it's still only on 20%. So I'll pause it here until we have got to the, until it's downloaded all of the files. All right, so we are back. That took about 5 minutes, I would say 5 to 10 minutes. And now when we press LL again, so now we can see that our tensor files are a lot larger. That means that we've probably downloaded them correctly and they're ready to be imported. Right, so the next thing we want to do is I'm just going to clear this. So the next thing we want to do is we now want to take the files that we have on our EC2 instance and push them into S3. And that's going to be where our Amazon Bedrock model import will be able to pull from. To do this, we're going to use the AWS CLI. It's pre-installed on this Amazon Linux instance. So we're going to just hit AWS, we're going to go S3, and we're going to use the CP command. And we're going to copy this. I'm going to use this dot because I want to copy what's in this folder here. And we're going to copy it to S3. And then we're going to take our the name of our bucket over here. And we're going to paste it there. And I'm going to just, you can paste it directly into the bucket, but if you want to use this for multiple models, I would say just put a reference. And this is kind of like a directory of where your folder is. So I'm going to just use Qwen. And then the last thing I want to do is just do -- exclude, because in our folder, we also have a .git file, which we do not need. And if you do upload it, it can also take a little bit of time. So we're just going to exclude it by using that. And the last thing is we want to make it recursive, like that. So if we hit enter, we'll see that it starts to upload the files into S3. It gives you a little bit of a progress bar. So we're going to just pause here until this is done. Right, so now the copy is complete. We can go over to S3 just to double check that our files are there. So if we go back to our S3 console, go to ML model imports, you can see that we now have the folders directory structure like this. And we can see all of our files are now available in S3. And you can see the kind of size here. For me, that took about a minute to upload. So now that our files are in S3, we can go over to our Bedrock console. So we're going to type in Bedrock. So now we're in the Bedrock console. We're going to go over to the left panel. We're going to go to imported models. We're going to hit this import model. So first of all, we're going to give it a name. So I'm just going to give it the name Qwen. I've already done it before, so I'll just use the same kind of name. So it's Qwen2.5. Just bear in mind that you can only use underscores and hyphens. So if you're using dots and stuff, just convert them to hyphens. You can create a specific name for the import job. So the import job is basically what's going to go and fetch the files from S3 and pull it into Bedrock. You can name this if you're doing a lot of these different model imports. We're going to choose the source as an S3 bucket. We're going to go click over here, browse S3. We're going to choose our model imports folder, and we're going to go Qwen. And what I'll do is I'll just hit this little dot here because I want this whole folder to be used as a reference for the imports. I'll hit choose. You can choose your encryption options. You can choose to create a role. For this exercise, we are going to create a role. So what this is going to do is it's going to create a role that allows Bedrock to access other services that it requires to operate in your account. And now we're going to hit import model. And first of all, it's going to create the role. So you'll see a little bit of a blue box here first. And if we wait a little bit, and then it will change over and you'll see that there's now a job here. And it's got the status of importing. So this will take a bit of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to imported models here. And I'm going to go to jobs. And we're just going to pause it here until this job has completed. All right, so our model is complete, and it took roughly, I think it took about 8 minutes to import. We've now got the completed green tick, which is a good sign. If we go back, we can now check in the model section. You should see that our model is now available. And if we click this, we can see a couple of details about the specific model. The next part is that we're now going to take this and we're going to use it inside of a piece of Python code, which I've got linked below. So let's head over. And before we do that, we're just going to copy the model ARN because this is what is used as an identifier when you're invoking the model via the Amazon Bedrock runtime APIs. So we're just going to copy it over, and then let's head over to the code. So the code is here. So here's the code, and it's pretty basic. I've tried to use as minimal requirements as possible. The main requirements that you're going to have to install are transformers, which is like a Hugging Face package. You'll have to have PIL or pillow, which is going to be used for image manipulation. There's a couple of others. The one that I specifically like to call out is .env. This is a cool package that allows you to use environment variables to load in your configuration into your code. So it means you can use this os environment.get and use the environment variables to configure your application. So the rest of it is pretty simple. There's a image to base 64. There's a messages, there's prompt. And right at the bottom, you can see how we actually, in this main function, we're actually invoking it. So I've made it into kind of like a script where you can just invoke it via the CLI with the image. So here we have the where we invoke it, and we're just going to ask Qwen to explain what you see in this image, and we're going to provide an image to the model. So this kind of structure, using all of this, we can find already in our Hugging Face. If we go back into the Hugging Face documents, you can see how to structure the queries and chats, but you can just, by all means, copy the code that's available. I've put it in a gist and I put it in a link below. So this kind of works. I've tested it already before. So what we need to do is you just need to configure it with our model ID. So because we're using .env, we can just have this .env file over here. The first thing we want to do is just paste our model ARN into the model ID. So this is how we're going to identify the model. We are going to need an AWS bearer token. So let's maybe just head back over to Bedrock. On the left here, I've made a previous video on API keys. There's actually a quicker way to do it I've seen here. We're going to hit API keys. Just for now, we're going to use a short-term API key. We're just going to hit generate. We're going to copy the API key over here. And then we're going to go back to our code. So that's a flip over to here. We're going to go back to our code, and we're just going to paste that in over here. It's quite a long key, but you want to learn more about that, there's another video before. So the last environment variable that I've set is this AWS max attempts. Now what that does is, because we've deployed our model the way that we have, it's going to use on-demand capacity, which means that when you invoke it for the first time, it's going to actually take some time to launch the model and to invoke it and get a response. So in that time, the SDK that's going to be calling it, the SDK is over here, this Boto3. You can see where we invoke it over here, invoke model. So the SDK is going to retry when it gets that failure a couple of times. So I've tried this before in the past. The default is 3 times, so it's going to retry 3 times. So that's 4 invocations, first one, and then 3 retries. So what that's going to do is you sometimes get an error. So by bumping it up to 10, it's just going to say to the SDK, try 10 times before you get a result. And that just avoids getting this sort of error that you see sometimes when you invoke it for the first time. Obviously, there's a way to do have a better response time, and that's using something called reserve capacity. But that's a different video that I can do in a later session. So with all this configured, we're just going to save it. And I'm going to just show you how it works. So I'm just going to invoke it using UV. I'm going to UV run main. And I've got an image here. I'll just show you what the image looks like. It's just a port image. I think the Qwen model will probably do quite well with this image. And so I'm just going to hit run, and I'm going to just send the images port image. And I'm going to hit enter. So what this is going to do is it's going to take the image. It's going to send it through to the Qwen model. It's going to use the Bedrock APIs, and it's going to get a result. All right, so that took a lot longer than I thought. I think it took about like a minute. So what it's come back with, it's come back with the result from that query. So you can see it's talking about, yeah, it's a terminal port. It's got prominent images, large gantry trains, background, all of that, etc., etc. As I mentioned, like the reason why it's so slow is because it is actually in the background. It's going to spin up at an instance and then do the invoke, and then it's going to spin down. I think if we do the process again, it should take a little bit quicker because it kind of keeps that instance running for a little bit of time. So let's just try that and see how that goes. We're just using the same image. Also, I think because it's a image and vision model, it does take a little bit longer to load the model actually into memory. So that's probably what happens. But you can see here, it's actually gone a lot quicker the second time. So this is important to remember, especially if you have an application that's maybe user-facing, is that you might want to use this as a batch process. So you might want to have it invoked asynchronously and then have a response later down the line. So that's just important to know. There is a way to use provision throughput with this model, but I'll leave that for another video. Cool, so we know that it works. The last thing I want to show you is just how to clean everything up so you don't incur any more costs. The model should be fine to just sit there because as long as you're not invoking it, it shouldn't really have a lot of cost. But I will just show you how to clean up everything just if you want to be on the complete safe side. So the way that we clean up is we go over to, we go back to our imported models. That's just me, I have to sign in again. Now that we're in the imported models, we can just click here and you can go over to these three little dots and you can hit delete. That's going to delete the model. And once that's done, we can head back over to S3. So with S3, you're going to incur a cost because you're storing a lot of files. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go hit this and we're going to hit empty. Bear in mind that this is a very destructive process. So if you've got other models in here or you've got other sort of important documents, I would not do that. Permanent delete. That will empty the bucket. And then the last thing we want to do is we hit enter, exit, and we go here and we want to just delete the bucket. An empty bucket doesn't really incur any costs, so it's kind of fine. What will incur cost is the files that are actually stored into S3. And then the last thing is our EC2 instance. We'll just delete that too, just so that we don't incur costs. And you can stop the instance. So we go over here, go instances. You can stop the instance. That will prevent some of the costs. So here we go. This is our ML prep. We're just going to go to instance state and we're going to terminate, delete the instance. You can skip OS shutdown because we're not going to need it, but you can hit terminate, delete, and that will get rid of the instance. And so you won't incur costs for having that instance around. All right, so that's the end of the session. Hopefully it's been useful and hopefully you've learned how to deploy the Qwen models into Amazon Bedrock. If you've got any feedback or any suggestions, please put them below. I'll happily read those and take them into consideration as I create more videos like this. Thank you for your time. Cheers.